Dents and scratches putting a dent in your day? Introducing Roger Steen Crash Repairs Adelaide, your trusted solution for automotive woes. With over 2 decades of expertise, Roger Steen Crash Repairs guarantees top-notch service, restoring your vehicle to its former glory in no time. From minor dings to major collisions, our skilled technicians handle it all with precision and care, using state-of-the-art equipment and techniques.
Roger Steen Crash Repairs saved my car. It looks brand new.
Fast, friendly and reliable. I wouldn't trust anyone else with my vehicle. Don't let accidents slow you down. Visit Roger Steen Crash Repairs Adelaide at 14 Penner Avenue, Glynde for quality service you can count on. And here's a special offer just for our listeners. Mention this podcast and receive a $100 discount on your repair. Roger Steen Crash Repairs Adelaide. Excellence in every repair.
Past players, past legends, past legends.
Welcome tonight, Nick Winter, and the dog in the background there, Nick, making sure you've got plenty of company.
Sorry.
No, that's all right, mate. 22 first-class matches, 431 runs, highest score of 53. We will cover that. 78 wickets, average of 30, and lots of big bash clubs, etc. And we'll let you sort of cover that as we go along. Obviously, successful career also for Tea Tree Gully and Adelaide University, originally from Canberra. Welcome aboard, Nick.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it. That's a big introduction. There's a lot of teams there, like you said, and not as many games as I would have liked. But a good 10-year career nonetheless. It's obviously very fortunate to even reach the level, so I'm very thankful for it.
Now, mate, Malcolm just mentioned there, obviously coming from Canberra, some early playing days in your juniors in Canberra. Is there a club or a school or a role that you were playing back then?
Yeah, Dad was in the army, and so we moved around with Dad a lot when we were younger. We settled in Canberra from when I was in Year 4, and I went to St Edmunds College from Year 4 right through to Year 12. So I've got a lot to thank for St Edmunds. I did the typical rugby and soccer in the winter and cricket in the summer with a bit of tennis. So I was a busy boy, and then started playing my first interactions with male open cricket was at Eastlake Cricket Club. So I started playing 5th grade there. I'd play for St Edmunds in the morning and then go to Eastlake in the afternoon and play 5th grade, and then worked my way up. And I think I made my A grade debut at about 15 or 16 and stayed at Eastlake all the way through till I was contracted at South Australia. So pretty special little spot in my heart for St Edmunds and Eastlake. Got some good friends that I still keep in contact with, and Canberra was probably a good place to grow up because you got lots of opportunities. You played in the second 11 competition back then as the Comets, and I was well looked after. So yeah, I've got a lot to thank for my upbringing.
Fair to say, cricket was number one then.
Rugby. I went to a big private boys rugby school, so I played in the first 15, and that was actually probably more acceptable than playing cricket. So that was how you're sort of judged at school if you're in the first 15 or not for rugby. So I was fortunate enough to just sort of hide out on the wing in the rugby union team and kick a few goals. But it got to the stage where I started to realise that I was probably not built for rugby, and I was starting to actually do all right at cricket. So sort of made some conscious decisions around 16, 17, 18 to really put my time and effort into that.
And we're fortunate enough to have Nick as our guest at sports camps a few weeks ago now. And interestingly enough, Pete, Nick had done quite a few of those himself. So it would have brought back a few memories there a few weeks ago there, Nick.
Yeah, it did. That was so before Canberra with Sydney. As I said, we chopped and changed to a few cities, but I probably did 4 ASC. They were called ASC back in the day.
Yep.
So I did ASC camps with Tony Miles. So that was, in hindsight, it was probably Dad just trying to dish my brother and I off for a few days in the holidays to get a break. But as kids, we absolutely loved it. We had Doug Walters would come and do his batting masterclass and tell us to tuck our shirts in and put the pads on the right way. But it was just such great interaction. We used to do it at Scotch College, yeah.
I reckon I've done 8 with Doug, and all I can say is that every drinking story you've heard about Doug is true. I'm convinced he's got 2 livers. He's incredible, yeah.
I can imagine.
There's some
I
of
was
my
obviously,
best memories, yeah.
Yeah, I was probably too young to
Yes.
have an appreciation for the character that Doug was, but he ran a well-respected clinic. We didn't ever dare step out of line when he was running his batting masterclass, so good on him.
And this was right at the early days of of anyone trying a reverse sweep. And one youngster's asked him one day, "How do you play the reverse sweep?" Dougie said, "It's a very easy shot to play. You attempt it, and I kick you in the ass."
Yeah. I was going to say,
I've never forgotten that with Doug's reply. I just absolutely pissed myself. So he was, a great character. So
You found yourself heading to South Australia in 2013 and 14?
yeah, I did. Yeah, so I played 3 under-19 carnivals. Just is the way with ACT, you sort of get a couple of goes at it because you play a little bit younger. And I didn't know it at the time, but we played South Australia in a second 11 match, and I had done quite well. I took 4 for, and unbeknownst to me, Tim Nielsen was watching, and that was on the back of under-19 carnival where I think I was the second leading wicket taker behind Cam Valenti, but we both were quite high above the other sort of competitors. So. I remember I was at my Eastlake presentation dinner. I'd had, maybe a couple of beverages, and I got a call at night time from Tim Nielsen asking if I'd be interested in coming across to South Australia on a rookie contract. So that was one of the most special nights of my life, because obviously Canberra is designed to basically produce players to get poached by other states.
Well, Brad Haddon was in that equation, wasn't he?
Yeah. So to get that phone call was very special, and I had my teammates and family around me, so it was a pretty emotional little night, that. So, managed to get across in 2013 and 14. The rest is history.
And because you were Teacher Gully originally, and then you actually started 15-16, did a decent, tore the muscle in your side, so that would have been frustrating there for a while there, Nick.
Yeah, my first couple of years were, at the time, you're young and eager and chomping at the bit to get into the team, and I sort of had to wait my time. And I actually lost my contract after my 3rd rookie season because at the time you had sort of Chad Sayers, Joe Manny, Kane Richardson, all these guys who were in their prime, and to make the jump up onto a full contract, they just didn't have the space. So that coincided with me moving to Adelaide Uni. It was nothing actually really to do with Teacher Gully. It was just a lifestyle decision. I was studying at Adelaide Uni and I was living close by to the campus, and it was just sort of tying all my eggs into one basket. And at the time, again, coming from Canberra, you just don't know how cricket's going to go, and losing your contract is a pretty hard thing. So, the first couple of years are always a bit tricky, and you're a bit young and naive to the system, so there's a lot of learning. After that 3-year period where I had the 3 rookies, and then obviously lost my contracts, and that's when I made that decision to move. And in between that, I had that little side strain as well that ruled me out of the Renegades. After my first year at the Renegades was actually quite successful, and I was building a little bit of momentum, and that side strain came at a pretty bad time. So, that's when I made the switch to Adelaide Uni and had a year off contract, but it was probably the best thing for me because you regained a little bit of passion for the game and just went out of the system, figured a few things out, and then came back in after a year out. So,
Had a good year there. And, of course, you also played over for Plumtree. Tell us about that over at Nottinghamshire, mate.
I did. That tied in when I found out I lost my contract and I'd been injured for a fair chunk of that season. I thought the best thing for me is just to get over to England, play some cricket, and just have a life experience as well over there. All the boys obviously talk about playing in England. I obviously couldn't play higher than local cricket because of not representing Australia, or I didn't have a British passport. But Plumtree was awesome. I stayed with a family called the Carters. They looked after me. Again, it was a very tough time for me, losing my contract, a little bit isolated and lost. So the Carter family looked after me, and playing in Nottingham, I actually didn't perform that well. I went back to England a second time and did a lot better, but I think the life skills and the experiences that I had over there, just traveling through Europe and learning how to perform as an overseas pro, they're all things that you can't actually, I guess, teach or learn until you're over there living in the moment.
Go through also what you've studied, Nick, because that's quite interesting as well, mate. Fill us in there.
I've done a lot, and it ties back to my St Edmunds days. I took my study quite seriously, as did my dad. He always not pushed me, but we always took that stuff pretty seriously. So
Yep.
I did an international studies and politics degree at Adelaide Uni, then moved into 2 postgraduate courses, one in business management and one in leadership and development, I think. And then I'm just doing my MBA at the moment. So almost finished my master's, which will be a nice feeling because I've done it for a while. And it's as every sort of cricketer does, when I do something, I do it to the best of my ability. So it's been a lot of time and effort into that, but it'll be rewarding once it's done.
Oh, it's fairly significant.
Absolutely.
There, Nick. I admit it was a bit of a standard joke with Fred Chock-a-Block at Adelaide Uni that I was the number 1 graduate of football 1H as the studies in terms of that. That was my time at uni, was just through footy at uni, not actually studying. So
no, that's good.
We'll jump back a little bit. Obviously, You talked a little bit about the Renegades and being involved in the BBL. Just take us through some of those experiences. Obviously, you grew up in Canberra and you moved around a little bit, so the moving side of it probably wasn't the hardest part about it, but playing with different teammates and different competitions. Go through some of those experiences.
Well, the Renegades one came out of the blue, and it was probably similar to my Saka story. I'd done quite well against Victoria in a Futures League game. You don't really know who's watching, and my manager called me up one day, and I think I was 20 or 21, and he just said, "Do you want to go to the Melbourne Renegades?" And I thought he was sort of joking, and obviously I made my way down there pretty quickly. And on Fox Sports the other day, they were doing throwbacks to classic games, and it was the season. Well, I spent 3 seasons at the Renegades, but one of the seasons we had a 90,000 Melbourne Derby and a 45,000 Melbourne Derby. So that was my first season there, and I remember I was playing with Andre Russell, Dwayne Bravo. We had Ben Stokes. We played against a Melbourne Stars team which had Kevin Peterson, Luke Wright, Maxwell, James Faulkner. So all of a sudden, I was 21. I actually played in one of the Melbourne derbies, and I was just so overwhelmed by who I was on the field with and who I was playing against. It was, I remember I used to love Kevin Peterson when I was a little kid. I used to watch him with his blonde mohawk batting, and then I'm out in the middle of the Etihad bowling to him. So it was all a bit surreal, and you learn a lot around those people. So I really enjoyed the Renegade time. It was the thing that probably not frustrated me, but is the most disappointing is I was there 3 years. I had 3 different head coaches, one of which I was injured for the season. So I was always sort of chasing my tail. I was always starting from the bottom and having to work my way up. So it was tough to get any momentum. And that's, at the end of the 3 years, I hadn't played for the last 2, and that's when I sort of headed off to the Strikers. So in the end, I was a bit of a journeyman in BBL. That's probably because it wasn't my forte. I was generally sort of a bit of a gap filler for squads, and they'd work out their first 16 players and then plug a gap with me at the back end. And Hobart was probably the other. I got to play, I think, 3 or 4 games at Hobart. I really enjoyed that environment, and I felt like they had a bit more trust in me. That was the days of the X Factor, so they were trying to utilise me to, bowl an over or 2 up top with the swinging ball, and then work me into the game in other ways. So probably the Renegades and Hobart stood out for me as, my favourite 2 memories in the BBL.
Now, on to first-class cricket. Personally, far more interest personally, Nick. I can't deny that.
That's why I got the BBL out of the way first, mate, because I know this is your wheelhouse.
Yeah. So
I was not a white ball player.
I can sort of take it or leave it. It's probably my bit there. So 22 first-class games, Nick.
Yeah.
So you're bowling, your left-arm mediums, etc. How do you feel in that way about bowling on some of the flat tracks around Australia? Not super tall either. So it's it's an interesting proposition. I know Brett Swain was unlucky enough where he hurt his back and lost. Just that fraction of pace hurt him. pretty prominent former Adelaide captain in Simon Goodwin was going to be considered exactly the same to you as you, Nick, with a left arm medium pacer, and then he got picked late in the. He got picked originally right late in the draft in the January draft when he was South Australian under-19 captain. So similar along that line. So how do you feel with and of course we will talk about your game in Sydney where you did take 10 for in the game and helping South Australia win the game. So just in that side of things, Nick.
It's a tricky conundrum, isn't it? Because you have no other choice. So you either make it or you don't make it. And I'd learned all through my juniors and, even senior Premier cricket, they're the conditions in Australia that you're going to get. You may once a season go to Tasmania and play at Blundstone and you get a bit of a green one or go up to the Gabba. But especially in Adelaide, it is pretty low and slow and you've got to be creative. The left arm angle can be great at times when the ball's swinging and new. It brings in so many forms of dismissals, and because batsmen obviously don't get to face a lot of it, you're a weapon when the ball's new, but then when the ball gets old and all of a sudden it's pretty tough to get LBWs because you're always pitching outside leg. You come around the wicket and then you're not sort of challenging the outside edge of the bat. So you do struggle a lot. And like you said, I wasn't gifted to be 6'5" and bowl 145 like a few others. So it's always been a bit of a grind at the next level. I obviously tried to do my best, and the running joke around me using the Duke's ball, but at the end of the day, the Duke's ball just probably exaggerated my best features, which was swinging the ball and challenging the front pad. And when I used the Kookaburra, I was able to do that with the new ball, and I still had a little bit of success, but it was just obviously the Kookaburra ball swings for 5-6 overs, and then it's pretty much just a waiting game, isn't it? So at the end of the day, that's what cost me, and that's why I only played 22 games, is because when the pitches got flat, I probably lacked that little bit of X factor. But on my day, and this is why when I went over to England the second time, that was on the back of me playing regular Shield cricket. I went over there with a Duke ball when the ball was swinging for 50 overs, and all of a sudden, you're taking big bags of wickets consistently because you're always in the game. So I don't want to be the typical bowler and complain too much. I would love to have been probably born over in England in some ways to have played over in those conditions, because
that's fair enough.
I'm definitely not suited to Adelaide, but at the end of the day, it probably at times makes it more rewarding when you walk off the field with 3, 4, 5 for, and you know that it's been a hard grind with your teammates out there to achieve that.
You did develop your batting too, Nick, and it did show consistent improvement. You valued your wicket, probably developed a few more shots along the lines, and because you were the stoic sort of defensive partnership guy, but you did develop and work the ball around probably a bit more as got older there too, mate.
Yeah, it did. Yeah, I think probably tying into that earlier point, when you're not the number one quick or number two quick, you've got to bring something else to the team. So I prided myself on trying to be the best of the bowlers. Found myself as night watchman, which at times wasn't great. Actually, I was with Josh Hazlewood the other week, and I just remember once I was batting in the morning of a Shield game, and he hit me in the head that morning, and then we got all out not long after, and we bowled them out, and we had 3 overs to bat, and Jake Weatherald, for some reason, had riled up the whole New South Wales team. And first ball he got out to Josh Hazlewood, and they were giving him an absolute send-off, and then they saw me striding back out for the second time in a day, and I just remember the look on Josh Hazlewood's face when he saw me for a second time. So those moments aren't fun, but I prided myself on my batting. I know I wasn't, again, super gifted, but especially where I was batting number 8, you were always batting with a batsman or a wicket keeper. So there was no excuses to go out there and throw your wicket away. If you're batting number 11 and you're with a number 10, you can go and have a slog. But I always had accountability on me to actually hang in there and just try and face balls, because if I was facing balls, then the batter at the other end had time to score more runs.
I think you got massive respect around the traps for that you did value your wicket and you did give 150% all the time.
Yeah, I think you've got to. It's, I'd probably go the other way and say if you didn't do that, it's a bit of a cop out at that level. Like it's almost expected now that, again, like I said, if you're the last wicket and you're just bashing for some quick runs, then fair enough. But pretty much at all other times, you need to be, you're playing for your state. You're representing all the other people that wish they could be out there. So the least thing you can do is show a bit of grit. So yeah.
No, well summed up.
As you said, batting down the order there, highest score of 53. What are your memories of that innings?
I think I got 35 not out as well in the second innings.
Yeah.
So I was in a bit of it was a good WA team. They had Jai Richardson, Cam Green was bowling, David Moody, who actually used to bowl pretty fast.
Yeah, he was
Mitch Marsh.
one.
Yeah, Mitch Marsh was playing. So not a bad bowling attack. That I remember at the Sydney Sixers, I was talking to Josh Philippi, and he said the Wacker boys hated me because, and it's true actually. I actually made most of my runs against the Wackers. I don't know why, but maybe because they're bowling a little bit quicker, and especially at the Wacker, it just hits the outside half of your bat and flies off for four. So. That one was at Adelaide Oval, and it was actually nice to get the monkey off the back to get a 50 in Shield cricket. It's always a good feeling for the stats as well.
Well, it's on the stats now; it can't be changed. So.
Exactly right.
Now, I think I'd be shot by Rob O'Shaughnessy and a few of the uni boys if we didn't bring up the successful era at Uni Cricket Club there as well, mate.
Sure.
So go there with your favourite memories of playing at the Blacks, mate.
Well, I don't know if there's a favourite memory. What I would say is that it was a really good time to be involved, and what drove that is that you had myself, Will Bazisto, who was around the Redbacks team, Sam Kerber was around the Redbacks team, Jake Weatherill, Wes Agar, young Kyle Brazell. We had probably a core group of 6 or 7 guys who were all at that first class level or wanted to be at that first class level. So when we came back to club cricket, there was some really high standards being driven. We had Ben Wackham, who had been in and around as well, played a few second 11 games. So the actual club culture was one that was actually probably more mirrored to first class cricket, and that reflected on the field. So not to discount, Tea Tree Gully also had a very, very successful era in my first 3 years. We won, I think, five flags.
Yeah, you did too,
so
apologies,
I probably had two little windows with 2 different clubs where I think in both we would have won 5 or 6 flags in sort of 3-4 year windows. So, but very fortunate because at the end of the day, you cherish those memories as well, playing Premier Cricket, and you get the whole club behind you. And for uni especially, that was the first 2-day flag that they'd won in a long, long time. So it was pretty special to be a part of that.
That was a great memory, that one.
Yeah.
At Uni Oval, etc. Now,
best before we go on, best bowling, mate, 5 for 48,
and 10 for in the game.
And 10 for in the game.
Yes, yeah.
You just be pinching yourself a little bit, going, "I'd like to do that week in, week out,"
and beating New South Wales.
Well, that as well.
Yeah, it started off with a bang. So I was 5 for in my first innings, and I remember I debuted with Harry Nielsen, and he made 100 in the first innings. So there was a stat that I think we're only the second or third ever combination to get 105 for as 2 debutants, and then went into the second game where I took the 10 for. So, I was pretty excited with first class cricket there when I had 15 wickets in 2 games and we'd beaten New South Wales. But no, it was funny because as soon as I got to 3 wickets in all of those innings, it was not selfish, but I was hunting fifers, and I think that's the mantra that all good bowlers have is you want to be influencing the game and dominating the game. So in all of those occasions, and whenever I bowled, but especially, when you've got 3 or 4 and it's your day, you've got to capitalise on that, especially at first class cricket, because you don't get those chances too often. So the 10 for at the SCG was obviously super special. I had my family watching. They'd driven up from Canberra. The first time I'd ever played at the SCG, there's that aura about New South Wales.
Yes.
So to beat them at their home ground, to win, I lived with Daniel Worrell when I first moved to Adelaide, and he took, I think, back-to-back forfers or a forfer. I know in one of the innings. So, we'd contributed quite significantly with the ball there, which was very special to get my first win. With those guys.
And Nick, the other thing though, you've always been pretty switched on and realistic of where your career and all that was at. So your role as the representative with Cricket Australia and go through how that's evolved and what you're currently doing and fill everyone in.
Because that's a newly created role, if I'm led to believe. Is that right?
So I was delegate for South Australia for I sort of dipped my toe in the waters, and then when Alex Ross lost his contract, there's 2 per team. I reached out to Callum and said that I'd be keen to fill the role of delegate, and that was partly for the opportunities while I was playing, but it was also to set myself up for post cricket. So I actually one of the main reasons for my move back to Tea Tree Gully is a former umpire called Jeff King. He has an investment company, and I started working with Jeff, and that's now transitioned into my full-time role. And then the ACA role, they had a person go on leave, and so I stayed in contact with the ACA. And basically, when they need a bit of a gap filler, especially in South Australia, then it's basically I've just continued on almost as that delegate role. So I've just been filling in gaps, helping out where I can. There's a test match function this Friday, so I'll attend the test match function. And it's just good to keep me in contact with the boys. So obviously I'm no longer playing, so I can still go and hang around the South Australian boys, see what's on their mind, see if there's any issues pressing. I'm sure there's not too many, but it's a nice way to stay involved with cricket.
What did you do with the test match just recently, the Glenn McGrath, Pink Test, etc.? Go through that, mate.
Yep. Yeah, so just was with the team, helping them out with a few different little bits and pieces, more logistics behind the scenes. And this was just on behalf of the ACA again. So they needed someone just to step up and fill in for a couple of days while the normal person who travels with the team was away. So just helped liaise with people up in Sydney, organise some of the events, the New Year's, the J McGrath High Tea, even a little bit to do with David Warner's. He had a little bit of a function after the match. So just being able to be in and around the inner sanctum, see what the guys are like in at the team hotel or behind the scenes, it was a pretty cool experience.
Could have pinched a cap while you were there, mate. Yeah.
That was my first day around the team, and I was like, Jesus, what's happening here? So
that would have been a bit different.
Do you have a nickname, Nick?
No, I don't. Pretty standard, just anything like Wince or pretty basic. The boys didn't get too creative with the last name with Winter. Anything to do with Snowy or anything like that.
I think we might have to give you one on the podcast. You talked about being the man for all occasions and filling in everywhere. I reckon Sally's would probably be a pretty good one.
That's not a bad one.
Too bad.
That's not a bad one at all.
It
might take some explaining though when I have to tell people, but I do like that. That's actually a good one.
We'll work on some sponsorship for you, mate.
That'd be good. That'd be nice. Yeah.
So Nick, in terms of also fatherhood and all that recently and along those lines, so life gradually moving along in that way too, mate.
It is. Life is certainly moving along very fast. So I had little Bernie in 2022. Yeah. So sorry, time does move really fast when you're counting back those years. We got married as well in 2021. There was a little bit of issues around COVID, so delaying weddings and whatnot. So it's been a hectic few years. So Bernie's now almost 2, and then we've got another little bub. We don't know what sex yet, but another little bub coming in 4 weeks. So it's an exciting time. It's challenging. Every day is challenging, but also super rewarding. And probably one of the most not disappointing, but having my last year where I struggled a lot with my performances, and I knew I was going to get delisted, and I was falling out of passion with the game of cricket. It coincided with Bernie's first couple of months on the planet, and so that was probably the hardest part, was trying to balance being present at home and being a really good father to him, but also having some seriously significant life-changing issues and decisions being made, between 9 to 5 on a day. So that would probably fueled a little bit of my decision not to play this year. I I'd well and truly given cricket my all, but I'd lost a lot of passion for the playing side of it, and probably all the factors we've spoken about. When you're not getting picked consistently and you're fighting so hard for opportunities and you give it your all, you sort of get to the end of it and you're just completely drained. And for me, it was time to put my time and effort into being a father and finishing off my studies and getting into the workforce. And I've actually started doing a lot of ultra running with Johan Botha, and he's inspired me a little bit. So I did a half marathon race yesterday, and I did an ultra marathon race with Johan back in September, and I've got a couple of plans to sort of dive into some triathlon stuff later in the year. So I'm fueling my competitive side that way, but just not chasing a red ball around all day. So
I can imagine how competitive Johan would be with doing that with him too. So that's probably a good person to do that sort of thing with, because of his incredible, just combative nature in general.
Oh, he's an absolute machine. Johan was my first captain at South Australia, and I knew it then, but I never really got the opportunity to. I only played a one-dayer under him, and then he sort of finished up. I had a little bit to do with him at Adelaide Uni, but again, because I was then playing Shield cricket, I missed him. But he's been awesome just to bounce ideas off, and I'm finding my feet in that. But he's great for me because I'm comparing my progress against his, but he's obviously just a superstar at everything he does. So he's a good one to keep driving me. And again, like I said earlier, when you've been in the system for 10 years, and even my Canberra years before that, I've sort of had that ingrained attitude that always striving for more and just pushing myself. So it'll be interesting to see what this transition, or I guess what it transfers into, and not how far I can go, because I don't want to ever do it too ridiculously seriously, but I will push myself. And, I do have ambitions to do some seriously big events. So, it'll be an exciting little period.
I know you well enough, Nick, that you'll be pretty bloody competitive with it too, mate.
Yeah. We'll see.
Sounds like you've got the work-life, sport-life balance just starting to work out very, very nicely, mate.
I do. I was just going to say, you need a supportive partner, because even the ultra-distance training actually does end up taking a little bit of time, and she is very supportive of me, but she knows how I operate. And for me, my biggest sort of mental relief and my biggest way to calm myself down is actually to go out and train. It's just something I've always done. So I'm gymming pretty much every day and running pretty much every day, or some form of cardio. So that's my, way to release tension, and then she can watch some gossip drama at night time, and I'll do the baby. So.
Absolutely.
That does bring back similar memories there as well, mate.
All right, mate, we'll get you out of here on this one. Who are some of the best players you've played with and against? We'll start off with who you played with. You can pick two or three.
Yeah. I'm just trying to think. It's a good question. Travis is obviously. You watch Travis bat sometimes, and he just blows you away because of how he looks like he's playing stick cricket at times. He just hits every ball wherever he wants. I'm trying to think of an individual player from the Sydney Sixers, maybe Moses or Sean Abbott, but they, as a whole, the Sydney Sixers team actually really impressed me. Their culture that they had of I probably wasn't used to it coming from Saka, because we hadn't had a lot of success, and I went into the Sixers environment, who obviously were the polar opposite. They're just winners by nature, and they've got Dan Christian and the New South Wales boys, and I was just sort of taken back by their way of going about cricket. They just, no matter what or who, they would be disappointed, borderline disgusted if they lost any game. And it was just expected that they won. And that probably flowed into their cricket. They were just always confident and, one step ahead of the opposition. So, probably Heady, obviously, his batting is just superb. But as probably team-wise, maybe the Sydney Sixers were, really special to be a part of.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's just an attitude we've never managed,
Yeah,
I'm 60 and we've never really managed to, probably a little bit under Ian, many moons ago. Probably the closest I think we ever had to having that. Yeah, so a bit frustrating in that way.
Yeah, it comes from success, doesn't it? When like success breeds success, and I can imagine when you had sort of Dizzy and Buff and Jamie Siddons and that core group of players as well, that would have been a tough team to play against from an opposition point of view. But yeah, like you said, probably never quite nailed that in my 10 years. And the boys this year are getting closer, but again, that's, you know, you want to be, you're not there to come third or fourth, are you? So you're there to win.
And that, I think you're right what you said with Jamie there, that the year we lost the Shield, we did the unthinkable. We managed to get Queensland their first ever Shield win, but then won it the next year. So we were around the mark there, and we just missed a final as well. So we were around the mark there for a real 3 or 4 years where that, again, you're probably right in terms of just that belief and that sort of thing came aboard.
No, I can imagine.
Hey, mate, greatly appreciated, Nick. All the best.
No worries.
With your roles there, and all the best with the ultra side of things. And
thank you.
Look forward to catching up and chatting more along those wires as well. So thanks, mate.
No, I appreciate that. I might see you guys at the test over the week. So thanks for having me on.
No, thank you, mate. Absolute pleasure.
No, I'll speak to you guys later. Thank you. Bye.
Liking this podcast? Please like, rate, and subscribe.
We thank Nick for his time tonight, and some interesting comments there, and obviously looking forward to his role with Cricket Australia.
Yeah, learning a bit more what's going on around the traps, and thank you. Thanks, Nick, and greatly appreciated.